I grew up in the southern and Midwest farm belt amongst the corn, rice, soybean, and sorghum fields. I remember waking up early enough or staying up late enough to hear the farm reports on our local television stations. The announcer was always talking about pork belly or soybean futures and other terms I'd heard 1,000 times but never took the time to find out what they meant. I just recently looked up sorghum as I started to write this script. I have lived in big cities most of my life, but always seemed to be more at home and connected to a more rural environment. I remember when I was in the 6th grade, a family member of mine gave me a post hole digger and a brief tutorial on building a fence around his pasture. Within a few days, I had enclosed about a half acre, and he paid me just enough to buy a few slingshots, some bubble gum, and an ice-cold bottle of knee-high grape soda. I was also given a personal tour of his private fishing hole, some life lessons about water moccasins and king snakes, and I was able to pick and eat wild ripe muscadines right off the vine, or muscadines, depending on whether you're from the north or the south. I could pick and eat all the peaches I could stomach from his orchard as well. As an added benefit to all the laboring in the hot sun, I grew 6 inches and gained 45 pounds at the start of 7th grade. I also got to get a glimpse of what life was like for my ancestors. You see, I come from a long line of farmers. Part of my family had been farming all the way back to the 16th or 1700s, as best as I could tell. No, not the folks with the big-ass tractors, barns, and large farmhouses financed by government grants and homestead programs. The kind of farmers who were allowed to lease the land, provide all the seeds, equipment, and labor, and keep just enough of the profits to make it so that they owed the landowners enough money to never be able to buy any property of their own. Never break the cycle of being a sharecropper/slave without abandoning everything or running up north to get a job doing just about anything. My great-grandmother told me stories of her parents that went back as far as the 1800s when she was born in the late 1800s. She told me about how her mother was an African slave and her father was a quote-unquote Indian, and they lived on a plantation somewhere in Alabama. She told me about how they were quote-unquote slopped with the hogs. They actually had to fight the pigs when it was time to eat and ate out of a trough with the animals. As an adult, my great-grandmother drank a lot of Jim Beam. She chewed tobacco and snorted snuff. There were spit cups in front of every sofa and chair that she sat in throughout the house. She was quite a character. She had dark red skin and long, thick black hair. She wore those knee-high pantyhose that she kept rolled down mid-calf, and her feet seemed to always be swollen. I rarely saw her wearing shoes. Most days her feet were bulging out of an old pair of house slippers. Every once in a while, she would light up a pipe, and I loved the way the fresh cut tobacco would smell coming out of the foil packet. It smelled very sweet. Unfortunately, once it was set on fire, it smelled like burnt ass, so it was a mixed bag experience. All the adults called my great-grandmother Miss Ann, but I called her Big Mama. Big Mama was very creative with needlepoint and thread. She would take fly swatters and sew little bells on them to use for musical percussion. She had an accordion she'd whip out and play for whomever happened to be in the house at the time she got the urge. I can remember her playing songs about John Brown's Yard, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and Oh My Lord. Her speaking voice was kind of mild in a normal volume, but when she started playing and singing, she got loud. It was quite in your face loud too. While playing, she would have this stringed bell fly swatter on her legs and pat her foot for the beat, and she played the accordion much like a one-man band of sorts. Big Mama told me many times about her first husband being lynched because he refused to sell his land to this evil piece of human existence. She and my mother both told me about how she was really in love with this man, and he was taken from his home in the middle of the night, tied to a tree stump in a field and shot at point blank range in his chest. I was hurt each time I was reminded of this event, but it reminded me that my existence was dependent on this evil act and that she never would have met my grandfather. I was also told that my great-grandfather, my biological great-grandfather, her second husband, had a younger girlfriend that moved into their house with them when they were married. I don't know if that led to their divorce, but when I saw the original Color Purple back in 1985, I thought about how all the Jim Crow foolery and white supremacy in the South made people do some crazy shit just to feel human. Other memories I have of Big Mama are, she was very stubborn. She may have ruined her cataract surgery by removing the bandages too soon. I actually saw her do this on several occasions. She used to make us the best percolated Maxwell House coffee. She served the coffee to us in these big-ass aluminum cups when we were little kids, mind you, with plenty of cream and sugar, and that was a lot of caffeine. For a snack, she'd always eat hog-head cheese and saltine crackers, or she'd have stale cornbread from the day before in a large aluminum tumbler full of cold buttermilk. And then there was the time she made fried bologna from that big red bologna and used a manually sharpened knife to cut those pieces so thick nobody wanted to eat them. She always had hundreds of coins stored in big-ass glass jars. All you had to do was go to the store and buy a fifth of Jim Beam for her, and she'd give you money for candy. She liked those Neapolitan coconut candies. She liked ice-cold grape knee-high in the recycled clear glass bottles. She made the best boiled chicken in a pot. It was basically a whole chicken boiled in water and salt and pepper in a pot. Go figure. It was delicious. She sucked her teeth when someone said something that she thought was stupid. She had an immense threshold for emotional pain, and she loved me to death. Many years after she passed, I was informed that she had children by her first husband, and some of them had actually lived in Tacoma, Washington. Strangely enough, I ended up living and working in the state of Washington. And when I took a job with the state of Washington in 2018, one of my training classes was less than a block away from her child's home in Tacoma. I believe Big Mama was a teenager who had met the love of her life and had a happy family for a brief time before being terrorized and having her life destroyed by the devil. I can understand why she wanted Jim Beam all the time, and tobacco and snuff, and saying like she was a Native American looking at a ghost and trying to talk to some invisible man. Ann Brown, born of slaves in Alabama. Without her, there'd be no me. She was here.